Next, on Currents News, Pope Francis makes plans for his first international trip since the pandemic overwhelmed the world. Plus, top U.S. bishops plead with the Trump administration to stop federal executions during the Advent season. Then,
she gave up a career as a professional chef to dedicate her life to feeding people for free. I'm Jessica Easthope with the inspiring story of one St. John's Bread and Life employee.
And meet the artist who created the powerful sculpture on display right by the Diocese of Brooklyn's Christmas tree in Grand Army Plaza. The news starts right now. Good evening, I'm Christine Persichetti. Pope Francis is making some travel plans. The Holy Father will be heading to Iraq in March. It's his first international trip since the pandemic began to support the nation's small Christian minority. The Vatican has officially confirmed that Pope Francis will visit Iraq in 2021 from March 5th to the 8th. This is a trip the Holy Father has been trying to make for some time. In 2019, he stated that he wanted to go there.
Un pensiero insistente mi accompagna pensando all'Iraq, dove ho la volontà di andare il prossimo anno.
The pontiff will visit Baghdad, Erbil, Karakash, and Mosul, the city where ISIS killed hundreds of innocent people.
Questa crudeltà ci fa piangere, lasciandoci senza parola.
Pope Francis will also fulfill one of John Paul II's dreams by visiting the ancient city of Ur, Abraham's homeland. The Pope's predecessor wanted to go on a pilgrimage there in 1999, but was unable to visit. The negotiations were long and the trip was postponed. Some years later, the U.S. invasion of Iraq brought everything to a standstill. This is the first trip announced during the pandemic. The Vatican has indicated that the trip schedule will be published in due time and will take into account the current health emergency and the state of the country. Pope Francis met with the president of Iraq at the Vatican last January. According to the Holy See press office, the two spoke about preserving the historical presence of Christians in the country and guaranteeing their security. A top Vatican official is worried about the rise in attacks in churches. Archbishop Paul Gallagher, the Holy See's Secretary for Relations with States, saying in an address to the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, the fact that many of these acts of violence have been perpetrated against believers when they gather to pray in their places of worship make them particularly heinous. Havens of peace and serenity quickly become execution chambers as defenseless children, women, and men lose their lives simply for gathering to practice their religion. Two leading American bishops are calling on the Trump administration to stop federal executions during Advent. 8 federal death row inmates have been executed this year after the Attorney General resumed federal executions after nearly 2 decades. Archbishop Paul Coakley, who heads the U.S. Bishops' Committee on Domestic Justice, and Archbishop Joseph Naumann, who leads their group on pro-life activities, issuing a statement that says in part, "This Advent, the Lord comes to love us even though we don't deserve it. Let us repent and embrace his gift. We call on President Trump and Attorney General Barr in recognition of God's unmerited gift of self-giving love. Stop these executions." Joe Biden has unveiled key members of his new health team. Top picks include California's Attorney General Javier Becerra as Secretary of Health and Human Services. Doctors Rochelle Walensky will head up the CDC, and Vivek Murthy will return as Surgeon General. Dr. Marcela Nunez-Smith will serve as the COVID-19 Equity Task Force Chair. Biden also announced that Anthony Fauci will remain in his role as Director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases. The national spotlight is on Georgia and the pivotal Senate runoff that could change the balance of power in the upper chamber. Darrell Forges is in Atlanta, where the race between the Democratic challengers and the Republican incumbents is razor thin.
Debate night in Georgia. At stake, control of the United States Senate. In one forum, Democratic candidate Jon Ossoff squaring off against an empty lectern after his opponent, Republican Senator David Perdue, declined to participate.
Your senator is refusing to answer questions and debate his opponent because he believes he shouldn't have to.
And another, Democratic candidate Reverend Raphael Warnock facing off with Republican Senator Kelly Loeffler.
My opponent, radical liberal Raphael Warnock.
She was appointed. The people of Georgia have been disappointed.
The two sparring over key issues like the COVID-19 pandemic response, taxes, and police reform. But the biggest challenge for Loeffler and Perdue may be convincing skeptical Republicans to set aside President Trump's claims of a rigged election and vote.
But I've called for investigations, and now there's 250 investigations open here in Georgia. But the president was also clear that Georgians need to come out and vote for David Perdue and myself because of what's at stake in this election.
And Kelly Loeffler continues to cast doubt on an American democratic election. It's time to put this behind us and get focused on the concerns of ordinary people.
We also have to make sure that Georgians know that we have a process that works.
But Warnock and Ossoff are also facing a turnout challenge as Democrats need to keep voters motivated to cast their ballots for a second time in the January 5th runoff. In Atlanta, I'm Daryl Forges.
The Supreme Court is hearing two cases where Holocaust victims are suing Germany and Hungary for compensation of stolen property. The plaintiffs say they were forced to sell their art collections under Nazi pressure. The justices will decide whether the cases against the countries can proceed in U.S. courts. They'll consider a federal law that allows suits against foreign governments when property is taken in violation of international law. A judge is ordering the Trump administration to restore an Obama-era program that protects qualifying young adult immigrants from deportation. The Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, or DACA, was suspended over the summer. Last week, a U.S. District Court judge in Brooklyn said the program must be reopened for first-time applicants, and the protection period must be reinstated to its initial 2-year extension. A sculpture depicting the plight of migrants and refugees will sit below the Diocese of Brooklyn's Christmas tree this year. The tree will light up Grand Army Plaza during a ceremony on Tuesday. Curts News' Emily Drewby spoke with the sculptor to learn more about the work of art.
Angels flew through the air as this sculpture, meant to inspire, was lifted onto Grand Army Plaza. It's on display through the holiday season alongside the Diocese of Brooklyn's Christmas tree. Angels Unawares, a powerful work of art with a powerful backstory.
Translation of one of the most powerful passages in the Bible, Hebrews 13:2, be welcoming to strangers. Many have entertained angels unawares.
Timothy Schmaltz is the Catholic sculptor behind the piece. In his art, he likes to translate what he calls hardcore ideas found in the Bible and present them visually. He's behind the well-known homeless Jesus statue and is working on a piece about human trafficking. Angels Unawares depicts the plight of migrants and refugees. It's the second casting, a replica of the one Pope Francis blessed in St. Peter's Square. It was a major undertaking.
It's one of the most complex bronze sculptures ever created.
140 migrants carved into this 20-foot, 3.5-ton sculpture, all based off real people from different points in history. Some he met in person, others were from photographs or etchings.
As far back as Catholics escaping the north of Germany during the Protestant Reformations, where I used etchings, really cool woodcuts.
It sends a message. We're all unified. The piece is full of metaphors from the angel in the center.
It is a very discreet message that we're all sacred and that we all should be treated with that respect.
To the boat that everyone is crammed onto.
We are all on the same boat, that we all share this human experience.
Joseph, Mary, and Jesus are also on the boat, perfect for the holiday season. The idea to add them came from one of Pope Francis's past Christmas messages.
He said, don't forget, Joseph, Mary, and Jesus were refugees.
The piece is also perfect for the Diocese of Brooklyn, known as the Diocese of Immigrants.
Brooklyn is so diverse. And you'll see in the sculpture not only Christians, you'll see people from all of the continents.
John Heyer helped bring this second casting to the Diocese of Brooklyn. It came from Boston College and will continue touring the country, eventually ending at its permanent home on the Catholic University campus. But for now, it rests here, a reminder of the importance of being welcoming and accepting. At Grand Army Plaza, Emily Druby, Currents News.
The annual tree lighting and blessing of the statue will take place Tuesday night. The festivities begin at 5 p.m. at Grand Army Plaza. To keep people safe, the event is not open to the public, but it will be live streamed on netny.tv. Again, on Tuesday, December 8th, starting at 4:30 p.m. The display will remain in place until 2021. There's a lot more news headed your way. An accomplished chef is dedicating her life to helping the needy. How her inspiring story is tackling the growing problem of food insecurity in the city. And Governor Cuomo once again threatening to impose restrictions on the city as coronavirus hospitalizations surge. Plus this.
Is CNN making its decisions based more on politics than it is on newsworthiness of stories?
One cable giant is getting some heat. We'll talk to Mike Rizzo with St. John's journalism program about media bias. She gave up a career as a professional chef to feed the hungry. Now, St. John's Bread and Life's Director of Emergency Food is working hard to battle the record high numbers of people who are suffering with food insecurity during this pandemic. Currents News' Jessica Easthope has her story.
Millicent Soros is always pushing to do more. As the director of emergency food at St. John's Bread and Life, she brings an unwavering drive to everything she does.
I've always been drawn to feeding people. There's something very intimate about feeding people, and that was always sort of my point of view in working in restaurants. I'm gonna pull those hamburgers off and put them in the freezer.
Millicent is a professionally trained chef, but she ditched her white coat for a Bread and Life sweatshirt. As a chef, she aimed to please the palates of her wealthy customers, but these days, palates of a different kind are one of her biggest concerns.
We have figured out how to maximize space in this building. Our chapel holds pallets. Our old pantry waiting area holds pallets. Our old dining room is where we put pantry bags and pallets.
Inside the Bedford-Stuyvesant soup kitchen, pallets of food are everywhere.
This whole area can hold 22 pallets.
Though Bread and Life feeds thousands of people a day, the pandemic has taken food insecurity to unimaginable heights. A mountain Millicent climbs every day.
Food right now to me is like how we can be the most efficient place so that we can serve more people because the numbers keep going up.
Thank you. Bread and Life has served more meals than ever before this year, and it's on track to serve more than 1 million in 2021.
The week after that,
for Millicent, her work isn't giving back. It's helping others move forward.
Seeing other people get involved in a real way, not just like, we're going to volunteer on Thanksgiving, but like in a real, actual way. The New York Nourish Grant.
Leading by example is what she's known for.
She really has a way about her that she gets people involved and committed because she really felt called to do this kind of work.
Millicent gave up a career of feeding few to feed many.
There's so many people who know the work that has to happen, and to be able to switch it up and change to meet the needs is incredible.
And she's never looked back. In Bedford-Stuyvesant, Jessica Easthope, Currents News.
New York has become the first major city to return kids to the classroom for in-person learning. This as the coronavirus continues to spike across the state. Students will be returning in phases, starting with pre-K and elementary school students on Monday, followed by middle and high schools sometime in January, according to Mayor Bill de Blasio. Parents who are sending their kids back to the classroom must submit a consent form to have them tested for COVID. And the mayor is joining a growing list of public officials who say they are willing to take the vaccine publicly to show that it's safe. De Blasio made the comments after attending a church service in the Bronx on Sunday. The FDA could approve the Pfizer vaccine as early as this week. New York is expected to receive 170,000 doses to start. Governor Andrew Cuomo is threatening to impose new indoor dining restrictions amid rising COVID hospitalizations.
We are looking at hospitalization capacity. And if we don't get the rate under control, and you are going to overwhelm your hospitals, we will have to go back to shutdown.
Cuomo says if the hospitalization rate does not stabilize in 5 days, then he'll shut down all indoor dining in the city, and restaurant capacity will be reduced from 50% to 25% in the rest of the state. Project Veritas, a conservative activist group, has released secret recordings it made of editorial meetings at CNN, which it says shows the network buried the Hunter Biden Ukraine story during the height of the election season and showed its political bias. Mike Rizzo, the director of the journalism program at St. John's University, joins us now to talk about this. Mike, thanks for joining us.
Hi, Christine. Great to be with you.
So first, let's listen to a clip of the secretly recorded audio.
Obviously, we're not going with the New York Post story right now on Hunter Biden, and which seems to be giving its marching orders to Fox News and the right-wing echo chamber about what to talk about today.
So that's apparently the voice of CNN's political director and vice president. What does this say about how newsrooms choose their stories?
Well, you know, editorial meetings happen every day at newsrooms and news organizations around the country. And what I observed from reading the stories and listening to some of the audio that's been released is a concern that you know, is CNN making its decisions based more on politics than it is on newsworthiness of stories. And I think what people are taking away from what we've heard, and there may be other material that we haven't heard so far, is where's the effort to get some original reporting? CNN can choose the choices, can make the choices of what it wants to put on its air and whose other material they want to refer to. They do refer sometimes to other publications like the New York Times. They chose not to in this case. But were they doing it because it was not newsworthy, or was it because it was a part of their personal feelings about what to report? So I think that's the concern that some people have about hearing what has been on these tapes.
Right. So do things like this affect the trustworthiness and credibility of the news media as a whole? You know, if even if we don't like a story, when does a journalist have a duty to investigate it?
Well, that's the thing. As I mentioned, original reporting is what we want to be doing as journalists. We don't want to rely on someone else telling us these are the facts. Let us check it out for themselves. If CNN also felt that this was not a newsworthy story, then provide transparency. Tell us why you're not reporting that. Let the audience know. You know, in today's day and age, people know about this story because of social media or because of other things put out on the internet. So CNN is a legacy news organization. Tell us what you're thinking about why you are or are not reporting the story.
Sure. And in your opinion, should this story have warranted more coverage?
Well, I think it was the kind of story that opened itself up for different perspectives in each newsroom to decide on what to cover and how it should be covered. There's a concept in newsrooms called intellectual diversity. It may not just be for the news media either, but the aim is to provide different perspectives from the people who work in your organization to give their experience, their take on things. Maybe we should be reporting on this. I didn't hear, again, a lot of that from the stories that, from the tapes that I heard or from the stories that I read, that there was an opportunity for people to say, hey, maybe we should do something on this. Maybe we should look into it. It was really seemed like a top-down decision on this is how our network is going to cover.
So you deal with young journalists every day. What can they learn from this?
I think one is to be informed. Find out what the facts are of the story that you might be assigned to cover. And then if something is brought up where there is a decision made that we are not going to do this or we are going to do it, stand up and respectfully, professionally talk about your thoughts on maybe why you have a different perspective. Maybe what can you bring to the table that someone else can't, that adds something to why someone should reconsider whatever the editorial decision is. Be professional, as I said, be informed, be respectful, but present your opinions.
And that is why you're the director of the journalism program at St. John's University. Mike Rizzo, thanks so much for being here.
Take care. Thank you so much, Christine.
Still to come on Currents News, almost 2 years since Notre Dame was nearly destroyed by fire, its famed choir will be returning for a special Christmas concert. And holiday sales are booming, boosting people's spirits and boosting sales for businesses hard hit by the pandemic slump. A very special celebration will be held at the Cathedral of Notre Dame this Christmas. Its choir will be returning for a Christmas Eve concert for the first time since that devastating fire nearly destroyed the famed landmark a year and a half ago. 20 singers, 2 soloists, and an organist will be performing in an empty Notre Dame, but the concert will be broadcast live from Paris for all to enjoy. Everyone needs a little Christmas cheer, it seems this year more than ever. So many started decking the halls early, which has been a gift to retailers. Tom Foreman reports on the surging holiday sales.
The holiday rush is on at the Owens house in Virginia. More decorations, more weeks ahead of the celebration,
lighted reindeer.
And more coming.
I went out of my way and spent money that I wouldn't normally because we're not traveling.
Coast to coast, countless others appear to be doing the same, charging into Christmas, Hanukkah, pick your holiday like never before. From this holiday shop in California.
With everything people have been through this year, from not only COVID but murder hornets, goodness, we're ready for some joy.
To this tree farm in Oregon where sales are 5 times higher than usual. While some businesses remain shut down by the virus, others are reporting early and sustained surges. And at this garden center in Maryland, the calendar has been racing forward with a jingle.
So normally you don't switch over to Christmas until November, but this year it was October.
It was very early. Gosh, we noticed that right away people were purchasing Christmas merchandise because we can't spend as much time doing the things we used to, whether it be retail or restaurants or travel. They want to make the home feel like a special place to be.
All that enthusiasm may really pay off, with holiday spending predicted to rise as much as 5% higher than last year, a big boost to businesses hit by the pandemic slump.
And some psychologists say it can be pretty good for the rest of us too. The lights, the decorations, the whole holiday vibe can lift spirits like nothing else.
I am assembling our fake 3-piece Christmas tree.
So if you haven't hauled out the holly, you might get busy because the socially distanced party has already started.
There's one thing that COVID cannot take from us, and it's definitely the Christmas spirit.
Tom Foreman, Falls Church, Virginia.
I decorated a week before Thanksgiving. You need that, Mary. And that is Currents News. I'm Christine Persichetti. Thank you for joining us because we are putting your faith in the news. Tonight we end this program remembering a dark moment in American history, the attack on Pearl Harbor. The horrors of this day in 1941 would prompt a hesitant nation to enter World War II. Right now, we remember the brave Americans, more than 3,500 of them that either died or were injured on that day.